Bellator returns to Europe as MMA legend Fedor Emelianenko made weight, and so did his opponent Tim Johnson. They headlined Bellator 269 in Moscow. The Russian heavyweight will step back into the cage on Saturday, and when he does, the last emperor will shake off more than 2 years of rust. It is expected that Fedor will maybe have one more after this. It depends on how this fight goes. As you take a look at the tail of the tape, our betting partners at CBS Sports have Fedor an underdog amongst his countrymen and women there, plus 145 opposed to TJ being minus 170. Johnson came up short in his bid to win the interim heavyweight title in his last bout against one of Fedor's pupils, Valentin Moldavsky. All right, joining us now is Fedor Emelianenko, the last emperor here on CBS Sports HQ, is with his translator. Fedor, let me ask you this. How are you feeling ahead of your fight with Tim Johnson?
Thank you very much. I feel myself really good. Well, as usual.
So when you think about your announcement back in June, what prompted the announcement with Scott Coker to set up this fight in Moscow on Saturday?
So the possibility of Bellator tournament to take place in Moscow, Russia, has been discussed for a pretty long time, and finally it happened, and that's a great event. So, and as for opponent, so the proposal I got after the fight of Valentin Moldavsky and Tim Johnson.
Very good. What do you know about Tim Johnson? Seeing him firsthand as a coach, what do you anticipate he brings into the cage on Saturday?
Well, I know that Tim has really great and very heavy punch, and he's very good in wrestling as well. What do I expect? Frankly speaking, I don't know. We'll be fighting, and I know, and everybody will want to win. I know that Tim has a great desire to win, and me as well.
One more question before I let you go, Fedor, and you will be stepping into the cage for the first time in about 2 years since you took on Rampage Jackson in Bellator 237. What nerves, if any, do you think you'll have? I mean, obviously you fought so many times, but this could be one of your last times this weekend.
Well, I'm not nervous. I don't feel like being nervous. I definitely, in my career, I did have long breaks. Some of them were even bigger than this one, but certainly we have to take into consideration the situation which is created in the world regarding different big events. But otherwise, I'm not being nervous. So our camp went as usual. So we'll have to survive another day. We'll see.
All right. Our thanks to Fedor Emelianenko joining us here on CBS Sports HQ. Fedor, certainly appreciate it. Again, going up against Tim Johnson at Bellator 269, and what you can view it on Showtime. And as we take a look at the tail of the tape one more time, Fedor will step into that cage as an underdog at CBS Sportsbook. Plus 145 is where you'll find it, with Tim Johnson at minus 170. Again, the connection here. Johnson coming up short in his bid to win that interim heavyweight title against Valentin Moldavsky, with Fedor in his corner and as Moldavsky's coach. All right, let's bring in the man who will be headlining Bellator 269 with Fedor Emelianenko. Tim Johnson joining us here on CBS Sports HQ. Tim, how you feeling, man? Getting ready for a fight one sleep away, bud.
Yep. Now it's just, rinse, wash, repeat type stuff. Do your best to kind of get into your routine and make sure that, we got plenty of calories in the tank, and prepare yourself for a war.
For all the Tim Johnson fans out there, how do you describe your camp heading into this fight?
Hectic. Definitely was a hectic camp. Got a lot of good work in good shape, lung-wise, and got a lot of work in with a lot of all kinds of my teammates. But yeah, hectic. I was going back and forth between Vegas and Minnesota a handful of times for a friend's wedding, and then I had drill weekends. So I kind of had to go do the military thing. But no, I was able to get a solid 10-week camp in, so I was able to counteract, knowing that I was going to be going back and forth a couple times.
Very cool. We talked with you about that last time on Bellator. I think it was 261 a little while back. You're doing all the media. You're doing the media with us, English, Russian, maybe even Japanese with Fedor. in a fight like this. What's the vibe right now out in Moscow getting ready for this one?
The vibe's great. Fedor and his team, they gave me a great compliment yesterday at a press conference that, that they respect me as a fighter. I'm a dangerous fighter, and it was nice to hear from them. And it just, and they're doing it when we cross paths. We all shake hands, me with this whole team. We all give, little head nods, everything. And very respectful team, very respectful fighter, and I'm happy. I like competing against opponents that are respectful that way. They understand that this is just a sport; it's not personal.
All right, got a couple more before I let you go. I know you're getting ready for the fight, of course, on Saturday night, afternoon for us here in the States. Fedor, give me the game plan, man. Give me the scouting report. What's it going to take for you?
Well, let me see. I'm probably not going to win a decision in Russia. Just don't foresee that happening. But either he's going to knock me out or I'm going to knock him out. That's the game plan right there.
And as we're taking a look at some of the highlights with you and the Last Emperor, first time that Bellator will step into Moscow and hold an event here. Big picture, have you allowed yourself to think about bouncing back from that Moldavsky loss, getting back into the conversation? We know Ryan Bader obviously exiting the light heavyweight World Grand Prix. Have you thought that far ahead?
Yeah, absolutely. It's not, everyone does the cliche, don't look ahead, just take the fight in front of you. Well, I'm focused on the fight in front of me. That doesn't mean you can't have a plan. And, a win here, I don't know if it gets me back into a potential rematch against the winner between Bader and Moldavsky. Might have to do another fight for #1 contender again. But, with Bader out of the light heavyweight tournament now, it definitely sets up the timeline a little quicker, which is nice for me. I'm getting this tail in my career as well. I still got, solid 3 years in me, but I want to fight as much as possible.
All right, get you out of here on this. We joked a little bit about the potential decision perhaps after the fight. What do you anticipate your walkthrough and your walk-up is going to be like? Because I've never known if you've had more than 99% of the fans against you, but that might be the case there this weekend.
I guess the closest would be I did fight a Brazilian in Brazil. So I got a little bit of that Udole chant down there. But this is definitely going to be a little more intense. And hopefully my smile and character can win a couple of Russian fans.
Tim, we certainly appreciate you, man. Stay safe, be well. We'll see you tomorrow night on Showtime, Bellator 269. Appreciate you, man.
Yep, thanks for having me on.
All right, Tim Johnson joining us here on theCUBE ahead of his Bellator 269 heavyweight bout with the living legend that is Fedor Emelianenko, Last Emperor, and TJ going at it too. The co-main is also going to stay in the heavyweight division naturally with a card that's going to happen in Moscow, Russia. A lot of Russian influence here. Vitaly Minakov. Then you have Usman Nurmagomedov, part of the Nurmagomedov family, ranked 7th in the division there. But this will be a 160-pound contract weight bout with Patrick Pietra. So that'll be interesting to see all play out on Showtime Saturday at 3 Eastern from Moscow. And let's continue the Bellator 269 conversation with the guys from Morning Kombat, Luke Thomas and Brian Campbell. We just heard from the guys here, the headliners in the main event. BC, your thoughts here with Fedor and Tim Johnson.
Look, it's an interesting matchup. This is nostalgic return for the Last Emperor, the Russian Bear, the greatest heavyweight of all time in Fedor Emelianenko. What we're going to find out come fight night, was this the right matchmaking? And Timothy Johnson, who despite the loss to Valentin Moldavsky in the interim title fight, went 5 hard rounds. Fedor should know he was in the corner of Moldavsky that same night earlier this year. But was this good matchmaking when you consider Johnson a little bit bigger, longer, has a knockout punch, can also take this fight to the ground? Should be interesting because as much as we want to write off the 45-year-old Emelianenko, his twilight, it has featured more wins than losses. And the reason for that quick right hand, it can still get you.
He's still fast for heavyweight. I mean, when he was competing in his prime, Fedor, they called him a middleweight in a heavyweight's body, or maybe a middleweight even in a heavyweight division, depending on the size disparity there. And so you still see some trademarks of that. You still see that the blitzing hand speed, it's still kind of there. It's an interesting choice with Timothy Johnson because he's not necessarily the biggest name. He actually is pretty good. They could have gone with someone who wasn't quite as good, who had a bigger name, and they didn't. And we already know Fedor has this fight and one more, and he's retiring. Like, there's no ambiguity about it. So on his way out, not so much this one, but these last two, it appears he's not looking for any kind of soft landing to appease the crowd. He's trying to be as competitive as he can be in this final chapter. Kind of admirable, but it's an uphill climb for him.
And we'll get to a prediction time in just a bit. But in terms of also the storylines for Tim Johnson coming to this as the betting favorite at Caesars Sportsbook, -170. You have Ryan Bader with that quest for the double strap that fell short in the light heavyweight World Grand Prix. What would a win for Tim Johnson do for him in the heavyweight division as a whole, Luke?
Yeah, it would do wonders. I mean, at the same time, we have to kind of manage our expectations here a little bit. Fedor is 45. I don't know that the current generation of MMA fans are as in tune with him as the ones who were around when Fedor was in his absolute prime. Let's say 2005, 2006, or 7-ish, right around Pride, the heyday there. He was obviously the Pride heavyweight champion. I think there's obviously been, some level of fans moving on as he gets older, which is understandable. Still, you beat guy like Fedor in Russia, it only does wonders for your brand. It only puts you on the spotlight. It only lets you say, hey, I may have just beaten the guy who many people consider to be the best heavyweight ever in the sport. Yes, at a later age, of course, but still, it kind of matters to have that on your resume. And also, as BC indicated, while Timothy Johnson had the loss to Moldavsky, he was competitive for the most part, and he came into that fight with, I think, a 3-fight winning streak, so it would only be a blip on the radar. With a rebound over potentially the greatest heavyweight of all time, Timothy Johnson could do wonders for himself with a big win over Fedor.
Yeah, just to piggyback what Luke is saying, I had a chance to catch up with Johnson back in August when this fight was announced. And to be fair, it surprised a lot of us, Johnson included. But he believes that Fedor saw something in that Moldavsky fight, maybe a combination of some good and some bad, of why the last emperor would think Johnson is the perfect opponent. Timothy Johnson said it himself. This is the biggest fight of my career. When you consider the name, the platform, the location, this isn't a title shot. But for Johnson, this is as big as it gets. And he's certainly still in the midst of the best stretch of his career, where he's combining good cardio with an eye for the knockout. He goes in there for the finish. So you should definitely expect fireworks in this one.
We certainly know that layoffs are no stranger to MMA fighters, and Fedor's actually had longer rest periods before fights there, Luke. But what do we anticipate he will look like with the home crowd in that building, with Bellator there for the very first time? What do we anticipate there for the last emperor?
I've literally been covering Fedor as long as I've been covering MMA. I mean, I think that is quite literally true. 15 plus years and then some. There's not a lot of variation between what you get either from organization to organization or frankly even year to year. Obviously things change a little bit. Father Time does catch up. What I mean to say is Fedor is light on his feet. He bounces on the front of him. He moves into range quickly. He has, as we've talked about before, very noteworthy, again, a little bit less these days, but still pretty noteworthy hand speed, good power actually, quite explosive. But one of the first guys, by the way, in MMA at the heavyweight level to really kind of make kettlebell training a fashionable almost thing. A lot of fighters followed in his footsteps, and he sort of acknowledged that was the reason why he had punching power at all. So I think he's going to try and get in Timothy Johnson's face, back him up. I think you're going to see a lot of hooking punches from him in combination, and he's going to try and make sure that Timothy Johnson, I don't think, goes past the second or third round. He's probably going to try and even end it early. It's classic Fedor. It's what you always get. It's probably what you're going to get on Saturday.
And BC, Tim just told us right now he thinks that he needs a result and a finish. Doesn't want to leave it up to a decision maker there. What do you anticipate from his side of things to try to get it done before it ends?
Well, look, just matchup wise, this one's not going the distance, right? We know that coming in. Both knockout artists, they're going after it. I think Johnson's right in what he's saying ultimately. When was the last time Fedor fought in his native Russia? It was the only time his fight had gone the distance in the past decade, when he fought Fabio Maldonado, and he got a very, 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 pretty much very favorable decision that he didn't deserve. What that means is that this version of Fedor, if he doesn't get you in the first 5 minutes, you're probably going to get him. Johnson has more ways to win this. He could take the fight to the ground. He could try to wear down Fedor's gas tank, or he can just stand and trade, which is what the last emperor makes you do with those quick hands. So, yeah, let's bet the under, I think, on the distance here, Tommy. I think that's what they say.
I certainly take that. And before we let you guys go, let's take a look at prediction time. Luke, I'll have you start, and BC, I'll have you follow. How do we see this fight, the main event, playing out?
Timothy Johnson, I think, is favored to win by the odds makers, and I agree with that. I do think it could get a little bit dicey. Again, the faster athlete of the two, for sure, even at 45, is going to be Fedor, and he is hard-hitting. But Timothy Johnson can wrestle. He can fence wrestle, which Fedor has never been good at, by the way. He's the bigger guy of the two, and I think he is massively improved. It could get a little bit unnerving for him if he's having trouble following the speed of Fedor, but I think that in the end, Timothy Johnson will get his hand raised.
Yeah, I think Luke identified the key part there. Early, with that crowd lifting him up, you're going to get the very best of what's left of Fedor early on. But if Timothy Johnson can get through that, look for a second-round finish. Fedor's gas tank not helping him at this point in his career.
All right, our thanks to the guys at Morning Kombat, Brian Campbell and Luke Thomas. Guys, certainly appreciate it. Thank you for the time. As always, check out their YouTube page again. And, of course, the podcast, however you consume your podcast, to get that done. Again, the heavyweight bout and the main event will be the last Emperor. Fedor Emelianenko could be his last fight. Talked about maybe one or two, depending on how this plays out with Tim Johnson and Usman Nurmagomedov. The name, of course, the recognition, and the family going to be taking on Patrick Battaglia, the 160-pound contract weight bout. The odds there from Caesars Sportsbook, by far the largest of any fight, as he continues his projection with Bellator and in mixed martial arts as a whole. The guys will have you covered. Luke and BC, the daily MMA and boxing podcast. Download and follow the guys today. And again, they just hit 100,000 subscribers on YouTube. And guys have you covered, including Showtime pay-per-view, and every UFC and MMA pay-per-view out there. Check them out today.